Hey y'all, I am back with some more dinner ideas. And first up, I'm going to show y'all my favorite recipe for beef stew. I make this every January and it hits every single time. So the first thing I'm going to do is grab a chuck roast. Mine is around 2 pounds, which is exactly how much I want for this recipe. I love buying these locally at Save-A-Lot because I can buy them on the smaller side. But if you can't find small ones, you can always, just buy a big one and cut it in half, freeze the rest, or just double the recipe if you're feeding a large crowd. But all I did there is I just simply, chunk this up into kind of big pieces. So all of that is chopped up, ready to go. So next, I like to grab a gallon Ziploc bag. I add in a third cup of all-purpose flour, and then I go in with a teaspoon of salt, a half a teaspoon of pepper, half a teaspoon of Italian seasoning, and a half a teaspoon of onion powder. So I'm just going to give that a quick little shake, use that measuring spoon to kind of stir those spices in, and then I'm just going to start taking that cut up beef and just throwing all of that into my Ziploc bag. So now that all of that's in there, I'm just going to quickly get that sealed up and I'm just going to give it a really good shake. And that flour, or that seasoned flour, is going to coat that meat perfectly. It is the perfect amount. And this flour, not only does it do something special to the beef, but it also is going to thicken up the stew as it cooks. So the next thing I like to do is get my vegetables prepped. So I'm going to dice up that celery. I'm going to peel those 2 carrots and dice those up. I like to use 3 Yukon Gold medium-sized potatoes. I do peel mine, but you don't have to. And I leave those in kind of bigger pieces. I'm also going to mince up some fresh garlic. So not going to make y'all watch me chop all that, but here it is. It is all prepped and ready to go. So I do love cooking this in a Dutch oven. So I'm going to drizzle in some olive oil. I do have this on about a medium-high heat. I added in about half of that coated beef into the bottom. And basically I am just going to sear both sides for a couple of minutes to get it kind of browned. And, this really is the only kind of tedious part to the recipe. I feel like these big tongs are not the best tool for this, at least for me anyways. This is something I always kind of struggle with. They're just like too big. I've mentioned it in other videos, but I really want to get some of those. I think they're called like kitchen tweezers. Tweezer tongs, something like that. You can get a 2-pack of them on Amazon for like $10. And, that's not bad. I really need to do that. I feel like that would work a lot better for stuff like this. So yeah, I should consider that. If any of y'all use those, let me know if it does make that easier. So anyways, now I'm just gonna, spoon those out onto a plate now that they are brown to my liking. And then I'm just gonna simply do the same thing with the other batch of that. You do have to do that in batches or else, they won't get browned properly because it's overcrowding the pan. It's kind of a lot of, the chuck roast. So, yeah, just got all of that golden brown. At least that's good enough for me. And like I said, I do love cooking in a Dutch oven, but the only thing that drives me crazy is how stuff burns to the bottom like that. It's not technically burnt yet, but still, like, it's really hard to get that up. I don't know if there's a way around it, so I just like to pretend that it's not even there. So I added a little bit more olive oil to the bottom. I threw in my fresh garlic, tried to let that cook for a little bit, and then I added in a big splash of some red cooking wine to try and help me deglaze some of that stuff from the bottom. It did a little bit of it, not all of it, but I'm sure that probably gives it a little extra good flavor. And then I'm going to add in a 6-ounce can of tomato paste. I've really been liking the hack of opening both sides of the can. That way you just have to push it down. You get every bit of it out like very quickly. So I just cooked that tomato paste for a couple of minutes. And then I went ahead and added in my seared beef. And then I'm just throwing in all of those washed and chopped vegetables straight on top. Next, I am going to grab a carton of beef broth. This is 4 cups, so I'm just adding all of that in there. And if for some reason your broth doesn't cover your vegetables, you can always add in a little bit of water, but I've never had that issue. So now I'm just going to add in 2 teaspoons of some Italian seasoning. I'm going to do several dashes of some Worcestershire sauce. I'm going to do a good amount of onion powder. If you like actual onion, you can skip that powder and just add in a chopped up onion in with the other vegetables. And I did add in 1 bay leaf. So I gave that a good stir. I waited for that to come up to a boil, and then I covered it with a lid and turned it down to a simmer. You can cook this anywhere from an hour to 2 hours, just depending on how you like your beef stew. Just go in and test the meat and the vegetables, of course. I usually cook mine closer to the 2 hours. So at this point, I tested everything. It was done to my liking. So the last thing I do is I just season it to taste with some salt and pepper. And I also add in a good amount of dried parsley. If you want it thicker than this, you can add in a little cornstarch slurry. But to me, this is the perfect consistency. So here's my bowl. I top it with a little extra parsley, and we love to serve it with some French bread. I just get that at the Walmart bakery. I heat it up in the oven, and we just cut it into big sections and just dip it in our stew as we go. This is the best wintertime dinner. We love it so much, and every time I make it, I'm just so proud to serve it to my family because of how delicious it is. The flavors are amazing, and it's just one of those recipes that I want to pass down to my kids one day. Up next, I'm going to share one of our favorite casseroles. This is a cheesy broccoli and rice ham casserole. So I start by pulling out a large pot. I melt down a couple tablespoons of butter, drizzle in about a tablespoon of olive oil, and here I'm adding in 1¼ cup of some uncooked long grain white rice. I did rinse it really good first before adding it into the pot, and I'm just seasoning it really well with some onion powder, since the original recipe does call for some onion to be sauteed in that butter and olive oil before adding in the rice. So do what you want to there. But next, I'm going to add in about 2½ cups of this chicken stock. You can absolutely use chicken broth, but I just had that left over from another recipe. But I brought that up to a boil, got it covered with a lid, turned it down to a simmer, and I let that go for 8 minutes. Then I came in, took off the lid, and I added in about 2 cups of some fresh broccoli, got that recovered, and I let it go for another 7 minutes. So by this point, your rice and broccoli should be cooked to perfection. So I removed that from the heat and add in about 2 cups of some chopped ham. Now this ham came from my freezer, just left over from some holiday, who knows, I didn't label it. But if you don't have any leftover ham, I recommend buying a couple ham steaks, cubing that up. I really like that in recipes. But after that, I added in a can of cream of chicken, a 1/2 cup of sour cream, and 3/4 cup of milk. And then I added in about a cup of some white sharp cheddar cheese. I regularly use regular sharp cheddar cheese, but I had that left over in my freezer as well. I buy it from Costco. It's really good. And I also just seasoned that with some salt and pepper, gave everything a good stir, and then I just dump it out into a greased 9x13 baking dish. So now I'm just taking the back of my spoon and getting that spread out into an even layer. And then I'm just going to take the remainder of my cheese and sprinkle that over the top. The recipe says you need about 2½ cups of cheese. I think I had a little bit less than that, but I would say you at least need 2 cups. But that's going to go in the oven at 350 for 15 minutes. And while that's baking, I'm going to get started on a buttery cracker topping. So you need about a cup of some crushed Ritz crackers. In that Ziploc bag, I already had some crushed crackers left over from something else. So I just added a few more in there to give me about a cup. I transfer that to a bowl, and then I melted down a couple tablespoons of butter in the microwave. Drizzle that over the crumbs, tossed it together with a fork. Here's that casserole after the 15 minutes. I pulled it out, sprinkled on the cracker topping, and that's going to go back in for a final 10 minutes. So this is honestly pretty fast to throw together. It's really perfect for those busy weeknights, and I don't serve this with anything because it's got everything you need all in one, but not a drop of this went to waste. My whole family loves this dish. It is so flavorful, and it kind of tastes like the holidays to me, even though I'm holidayed out, but it's definitely a recipe I never want to lose. Up next, I'm going to show y'all how I made this really easy and delicious homemade spaghetti sauce. If you watch all of my videos, you'll know that it's very rare that we eat spaghetti. We're not a big spaghetti family, but after trying out this recipe, I can definitely see us having it more often. So I started by browning up a pound of ground beef, and I really like that this recipe uses a pound because me and the kids, we really don't prefer like a really meaty spaghetti. We love a meaty chili, but we don't love a meaty spaghetti. So to me, this ratio was perfect. And per usual, when that meat was about halfway cooked through, I went in and seasoned it really good with some salt, pepper, onion, and garlic powder. I let that finish off cooking till there was no longer any pink. If you have a lot of grease, definitely drain it. I did use a leaner meat, so I didn't even worry about draining anything. I did cook in like a big spoonful of minced garlic for a little bit, and then I'm gonna add in a 6-ounce can of tomato paste using that same trick of opening both sides of the can. And I'm just gonna stir that tomato paste in to coat the ground beef, cook that tomato paste for a few minutes, and then I'm gonna add in a 29-ounce can of crushed tomatoes. I'm also going to do a 29-ounce can of tomato sauce. So I'm going to give that a quick stir just so nothing's scorching to the bottom, nothing's bubbling too much. And then I'm going to start adding in my seasons. As you see, I made a huge mess with the Italian seasoning, and that does not smell good once it burns to the stovetop. But you need about 2 tablespoons in the sauce, 2 tablespoons of sugar, and a good amount of Worcestershire sauce. Here I'm just adding in some onion and garlic powder and a big pinch of some salt and pepper. I did also add in 2 bay leaves. So I'm going to get that stirred in, and once it starts bubbling, I'm going to cover that with a lid and let it simmer for about 30 minutes. So this is the spaghetti that I'm going to be using. This is my first time ever buying the Protein Plus spaghetti. It's just something I've always wanted to try. I guess it never hurts to get a little extra protein, but it tasted really good. It tasted just like normal spaghetti. We all really liked it. So once I got that pasta cooked and drained, I finished up the sauce, so it simmered for 30 minutes like I said, and then I came in with some fresh basil that I chopped up, and I also added in a good amount of some dried parsley. And then here I'm just adding in that cooked and drained spaghetti. I did end up switching the spoon to make it easier to distribute, and not only is the flavor of this amazing, but I absolutely loved how saucy it was. We do not like a dry spaghetti, so the ratios here was absolutely perfect, as you can see, and this made a lot, obviously. So we had this for 2 meals, and the next day reheating it, it was still really nice and saucy, which we loved. So here's my plate. I did grate some fresh Parmesan cheese over everyone's spaghetti. We love having a side of peas with our spaghetti, and I just made a quick homemade garlic bread. I just spread some butter over some light bread, sprinkled on some garlic salt, garlic powder, and some parsley, and just popped it under the broiler for a little bit. Went perfect with this. But yes, this spaghetti sauce was amazing, and you know, if you like spaghetti, you have got to give this sauce a try. I have been craving some buffalo wings with homemade ranch for a while now, so I finally made it happen. These wings right here, the Great Value frozen ones, were literally the only option that I had with all of this snow that we have been getting lately. The grocery stores have been kind of bare. They've been out of a lot of things, so there was no fresh chicken wings to choose from, so I'm just going to make do with what we can get. So I did thaw them out and lay them out on paper towels, and then I'm going to take another paper towel and kind of blot the top of them. That way I can try and dry them off the best that I can. That way they will crisp up better. These chicken wings were pretty good, but a lot of them, shrunk a lot as they cooked, making them a little on the smaller side. But other than that, they were great, and if I was ever in a pinch again, I would repurchase them. But I got all of those transferred to a large mixing bowl. I drizzled them with some olive oil and just sprinkled in a little bit of baking powder, because I've also heard that will help crisp it up. And then I went in with this new seasoning blend that I got from Kroger. It's the Texas Bold and Smoky. I had a coupon on it, so I figured, let's try it. And it's really good. We like that, and it's really peppery, which we love. So I did get a Traeger pellet grill. slash smoker for Christmas. It's something that I've been interested in for a really long time. So this is my very first time ever using it. And it is something that I want to get really good at. I feel really unfamiliar with it. It makes me a little nervous. I'm not too worried about cooking stuff on it really. I think more of it for me is like the cleanup of it, and I'm kind of worried about it like catching on fire because it's on our side porch, which is somewhat close to our house. So I'm just trying to be very cautious with this thing and learn a lot about it. I have been doing a ton of research. I have been watching so many videos. But yeah, I'm just still kind of unfamiliar with it. So with that being said, if any of y'all have one of these and you have any tips and tricks, I'm all ears. But I got all of those chicken wings loaded up on there, and I'm doing the 0 to 400 method. So basically you put them on a cold grill, crank it up to 400, and then set a timer for 30 minutes. So I came back after the 30 minutes and, try to flip them over. And for whatever reason, a lot of them on the right side wanted to stick to the grates. And yeah, I had to turn the camera off because my nerves were getting tore up. So are you guys like oiling the grates before you put the food down? I've never seen anyone do that. Yeah, let me know. But anyways, I'm going to let those cook on the other side for about 20 minutes since they're on the smaller side. And then I came back inside and I'm going to spruce up this buffalo sauce. So I did about 4 tablespoons of butter in this little saucepan. I added a little over half of that Frank's mild buffalo sauce in there. I did get the mild because my family is kind of sensitive to spice. And I also did a few dashes of Worcestershire sauce. And I'm just heating this over medium heat. I'm not trying to boil it. I'm basically just melting the butter and heating that sauce all the way through. So my wings are done. I checked them with a meat thermometer just to be sure before I took them off and loaded them up in this aluminum pan, which I do intend to reuse after I wash it. And I just drizzled in all of that delicious sauce. It's crazy how much better just some butter and Worcestershire sauce can make a bottle of buffalo sauce, but that sauce was incredible. Here's a little overview of those wings once they were fully done and fully coated in that sauce. I think that they look great. I was really proud of them. I thought it was a really great first attempt at chicken wings on the smoker. So here's my plate. Of course, I've got my homemade ranch to dip those in. It's just a cup of buttermilk, a cup of mayo, and some Hidden Valley ranch seasoning. Tastes just like the stuff from a restaurant. And I did deep fry some Rally's fries to go along with it, and the whole meal was just delicious. Definitely cured my craving, and I love the smokiness to those wings. I've had this package of ground chicken in my freezer for a while now, and I finally came across the recipe that I want to use it on. It's called Cool Ranch Meatballs, and it is super easy to throw together. So all it is a pound of ground chicken. I threw that in a small mixing bowl. I cracked in 1 egg. I added a half a cup of panko breadcrumbs, a cup of Parmesan cheese. I did shred that myself. I did a half a teaspoon of garlic powder, half a teaspoon of onion powder, and a half a teaspoon of Italian seasoning, and then just some pepper to taste. I'm not adding any salt to this mixture because it's going to be coated in a pretty salty sauce, so it truly doesn't need it. So I just got all that mixed together with my hands. I was careful to not overwork it for too long or anything. And then I'm just simply taking a small cookie scoop and scooping that out onto a parchment lined cookie sheet. Just a good way to hold everything. And that way everything can be pretty similar in size. And then I just went back around and rolled them together between my hands to form the perfect meatball. So that went pretty quickly. I am going to be cooking these in my electric skillet. I have been loving this thing. I really like how large the cooking surface is. That's why I chose this to cook this in, because I knew that it would hold all of these meatballs and I wouldn't have to cook it in batches. So I just added a couple tablespoons of olive oil to the skillet. This skillet does get really hot really fast, so I'm only cooking these on about a medium-low heat. And for this step, basically, we're just browning both sides of the meatballs, just giving it some nice color, a better texture, better look, all the things. But yeah, I just cook these for maybe a couple of minutes per side. We're going to be mostly cooking them through right now, but after we make the sauce and add it back to it, that's when we'll finish cooking off the meatballs. So they're not fully cooked right now. And I try to get some of the sides, but that wasn't working too well. So these look good enough for me. So I'm just getting those transferred to a plate, and I'm just going to get these set to the side so that we can start working on that sauce. So the skillet is still on a medium-low heat. I'm adding a cup of low-sodium chicken broth to the skillet. I threw in 1 tablespoon of ranch seasoning. I did a small amount of just some minced garlic from the jar. And then this is 1 block of cream cheese. And I did pop that in the microwave. I believe I did like 30 seconds. You want to get it pretty soft so that it'll be easy to mix through. So I'm just kind of breaking it apart with my silicone whisk. It's going to look a little wonky for a little bit, but as soon as it's fully heated through, it's going to melt into this beautiful sauce. So no worries there. So once that sauce was to my liking, I went ahead and added all of my meatballs back into it. And as you can see, I'm just making sure that they are all fully coated in that sauce. And you want to let it simmer for like at least 5 minutes just to make sure those meatballs are all the way cooked through. I pretty much just let them simmer until my other sides were done. So I did top the meatballs with some dried parsley, and I served them over some egg noodles that I cooked in chicken broth and butter. And then for the side, these are just some frozen green beans that I steamed and then sauteed in some butter and garlic salt. This whole meal was amazing. We love these meatballs, so much flavor, and that sauce had such a nice little zing to it that we all really enjoyed. So that is all the recipes that I have for you today. I hope that this video was helpful with your meal planning. As always, I want to thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you all have the best weekend, and I will see y'all in my next video.